Welcome to Beacon of Creation, a weekly podcast on game design through the lens of Magic the Gathering. I'm Tim.
Auxiliary Otter.
This week I would say in a weird way, like going extra into the game design section, because we are not just thinking about magic cards as magic cards, but we're thinking of like how to change cards, how to edit cards. There's a kind of concept of like Sharpie Cube or Sharpied magic cards, which involves taking a regular magic card and just blotting out parts of the card and then seeing what the new thing is that results from that. I think a really classic example that I've actually seen in non-Sharpie cubes is taking some of the cycle of lands that's like, oh, this is an island mountain. It enters tapped and it taps for either color. It's a common. And then just saying, let's Sharpie out the enters tapped, and now we have a proxy for volcanic island. Just a kind of like a functional way to get a more powerful card. And that's part of what you can do with Sharpie. But Otter, I know, prepping for the show that you have a lot of experience with Sharpie stuff. So do you have like a sort of overall sense of what is interesting or addictive about it? How you kind of got into it or how you kind of got deeper into it?
So I got into Sharpie after the craze of like, let's post things online about Sharpie. I saw it, and I saw
Hmm.
the one that got me excited was when people redacted things and the flavor text became rules text.
Yes. Yeah.
So the classic is going to be Colossal Dreadmaw. One of its printings has a quote from Captain Lannery's Storm. So
Mm-hmm.
if you redact everything but the word storm, it now has storm.
Yeah. When I was looking up cards for this, I found Seething Song, which is normally 2 in a red to get 5 mana. And they have Seethe for a red mana, add red, 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 STORM, STORM, Storm. So it's, give one spell Storm 3 times because you can assemble words out of portions of words.
So I saw all of those and I joked with everyone else. It was kind of funny. A lot of
Yeah.
people redacted things down to, as you're saying, that powerful level, like you said, with the
Yeah.
let's take a dual land and redact it to being just a pure dual. I had somebody come to me and he was saying, hey, do you want to build a Sharpie Cube together? And so I start
Hmm.
working with him. And then I more or less just went on my own and started working on my own Sharpie Cube. He got distracted with other things in his life. So I'm here making Sharpie stuff. Fast forward like 6 months later, I had gotten all the stuff ready to go and redacting it. And then I was like, I'm going to fire this. I invite my friend over. I redact all the cards. I
Hmm.
had digitally redacted all my cards. Like I pulled up an
Oh,
MSC file and I made all the redactions.
wow. You punched them all in and then.
Yeah, and I redacted using the underline system just as a way to
Mhm.
remember what I did. And sometimes I had to paste not the Oracle text, but the original text, because sometimes you can use the old text, not just the Oracle text, to get different effects.
Hmm.
And I got some clever ones, but I'm not going to lie. The most clever thing to do in my mind is just make a card that works and people enjoy. You're not going to impress them by showing singular cards this way, but it's going to lead to the best like cube playing experience. So a lot of my redactions were lots of mana cost reductions. The first test went really well. We
Hmm.
enjoyed it.
Mhm.
A couple of cards weren't great for a couple of reasons, and I've been iterating since then. I've been doing a lot of other Sharpie projects where I like this other cube format, and I will make a Sharpie version of it instead of just
Uh,
using official cards or just using custom cards.
Sharpie bar cube or whatever.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Let's go back to that mana cost thing again, because I think that's a good way to start thinking about this process. Like, you can just sort of take like this 2 in a red card, you can wipe off the 2, and now you just have a red mana for this card. I guess you could also do that with mana symbols, right? Like you'd wipe off the red and end up with a colorless spell.
Yeah, there's a lot of cards that I've found over the years trying to figure out which parts are best redactable. And we'll go through a lot of
Hmm.
my rules here, the things
Yeah,
that
yeah.
I've learned as lessons, and I apply for rules for myself. Other people can break the rules
Hmm.
because everyone listening here makes custom cards. You can make up your own list of rules. These are just the heuristics I've learned.
Hmm.
And so your example there of how do I redact mana costs? One of my biggest rules is I don't want to lose color on a card because then the frame won't line up with the color.
Okay.
So if I took a card, let's say also named Grizzly Bear, if I redact the generic mana out of Grizzly Bear, it's still a green 1 mana 2/2.
Yeah.
If I redact the G off of the 1 and the G, it becomes a colorless 2/2, but now has a green frame. So
Ah.
that's one of the things I've learned of like, I want clarity to be utmost important. We've all fired cubes where people have questions, concerns, and confusions, and
Mhm.
Sharpie, I can't add I'm not giving myself the ability to add. I've thought about adding stickers that explain things.
Mm.
I'll sometimes point out cards to explain before the draft, but the more of those I have to add, the more stuff people have to keep in their heads. So when they're
Hmm.
drafting, they're confused, or and they're playing the game, they assume they understand, but they do it wrong, and
Yeah.
those affect me a lot. So I focus a lot on clarity.
Those are both like things that when you're looking for that really refined draft experience that start to bug you a lot, I would say, as a designer. Like interruptions during draft, people know they're supposed to not talk about their draft during the draft, but then they're really kind of confused. It creates a lot of anxiety, or maybe they don't say anything and now they're kind of dissatisfied. I was looking around for different Sharpie things and I found some Sharpie cubes, but there's also a Sharpie Cube subreddit. And they actually have like flair. All cards have to either be flared with made to play with or made to meme with. And I think that that's like a kind of like a big divide in the Sharpie Cube or Sharpie card style is what you're actually aiming for. Kind of the same way that you might think if I'm designing a card, am I making this card for draft or for commander? And that might actually really change the numbers, the cost, the effect, everything else.
Yeah, most of the posts I see are those meme jokes or somebody
Yeah.
coming with an entire cube and saying, "Hey, can I have help with my entire cube?" And they've come with their own rules, like I have here.
Yeah.
I'll try to like chime in with my feelings and thoughts. There's
Yeah.
actually more controversy than I would expect, where people saying you aren't allowed to redact the mana costs. They're
Hmm.
fine redacting costs in the text box, but some people don't want to redact the cost up top.
Yeah, and I think that that's part of what's kind of cool. Custom magic design is all about this like split between it's interesting, fun, enjoyable, shareable to design one card. And then at the same time, it's also really desirable to like dive in and create like a whole self contained system for this modifier. What does it actually take to end up with like 300 existing cards that have all been changed? You're required to be changed. That's sort of like growth between can I do 5 of these? Can I do 10 of these? Can I do 100 of these? 300 of these? Like that's I guess a common pattern in magic, custom magic design, and also one that like Sharpie Cube is a big part of. Like the what you want to aim for really changes what your result's going to be.
I know a lot of people look at when they're like updating a cube environment specifically, they have a finite size. Some people flex up or down a little bit on these slots, and some people have a
Hmm.
very rigid spreadsheet aesthetic. I am one of those people with the rigid spreadsheet aesthetic. And one thing that drew me to like custom magic beyond just doing like official WotC magic cubes was that I could create things that match my spreadsheet. A lot of people will put like a kitchen finks card, which is a green white hybrid card, in their gold multicolored sections. And that would
Hmm.
hurt me because I'm like, that is not a gold card, that is an or relationship. I would need to make a separate section for hybrids, and I
Hmm.
would need to make sure that section is evenly balanced, just like the rest of the color sections. And that's not how
Hmm.
everyone needs to approach the problem of magic, but that's how I wanted to approach it.
Yeah.
So I was drawn to custom, where I could change cards to be the colors I want them to be. And Sharpie is an interesting angle because I can't just say, I'm going to take pacifism and make it a blue white card and just make a new card called Fishicism or something. I have to redact something from a real magic card to create what I'm looking for.
Hmm.
And sometimes that doesn't exist, and sometimes that doesn't exist in a way that I can do easily because it requires too many small redactants throughout the card. Sometimes it doesn't exist because that card just isn't out there. And the last one that, depending on your budget, it doesn't exist because I don't have the card in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I spent a long time looking for certain cards because I didn't want to spend the money to buy a bulk common from Shadows over
Just to
Innistrad.
change it. Yeah.
But I got one recently and I'm really excited. But also, there's rare cards. Like, you can redact a really expensive card, and if you want to do it by just proxying out that card, then redacting the proxy, that's fine
Hmm.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
That doesn't work in like the no sleeve environment that you can sometimes do with Sharpie,
Hmm.
but it's harder to do with other custom projects is to do a no sleeve environment.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, this feels like relatively in that bar cube, no sleeve, quick play kind of zone. But it all, like we've been talking about, it kind of depends on what your actual goal is. That's like maybe part of why I was interested in this episode is kind of like learning enough from what you've already tried, absorbing some stuff from some other examples to kind of give someone a chance of thinking of what their goal should be. Maybe they want to do it Otter style and they like exactly the rules you've set up, or maybe they want to tweak that and they want to lean more into the mystery, the like magic as Garfield intended, where the rules are like there to get you started, but in order to resolve a card, you kind of have to talk it out.
One of my brothers has tried to encourage me to do more loosey-goosey effects.
Yeah.
Like, when this creature enters, it dances.
Mhm.
No one knows what that's going to mean. And that can be a funny way to play Magic, but I prefer to have it have a more rigid, when it comes into play, some sort of magic term. And I'm
Mhm.
glad that like we exist in a game where people can have varieties of experiences, but we do have some amount of shared language between each other. Versus
Mhm.
if I was showing you a completely different board game, you don't have enough context to really give me feedback on my custom Spirit Island card, for example.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, That's again one of the great things about Magic is like you can just kind of drop that in one of many places, and someone can give you feedback on what you decide to do there. With like unsets or like a Planeswalker theme set or whatever, like one card in the pack is special, and maybe in Sharpie Cube, what we're saying is like one card per pack roughly is weird, but we're not trying to make like 300 weird cards that are all a nightmare to try to resolve. Like a card that has like only kind of defined rulings is nice to deal with once in a while, but would be a little too much if you played it all the time.
Mystery Mystery had those playtest cards that were a bit wonky,
Oh
and
yeah,
but you still had
yep,
core magic to the center. I want my experiences to be much more than just one Planeswalker per pack, personally.
yeah,
I want it to be much more all in. You do this thing, it's about this thing. Particularly now that Magic has such a high tempo of releases, I think once you could even go harder into this product is about
it's
this,
weird.
and the
Yeah,
next product will be about
hmm
that. And for
hmm
me, I don't have to go as hard given that I don't get to fire my Sharpie Cube at most once every 6 months.
hmm
So it can be rather repetitive, but you do it once every 6 months, that's
yeah,
fine. Versus some people make cubes where they play every week. I'm very jealous of
yeah.
them. And they do need to worry about variance and variability and making sure
hmm
the play patterns line up with what their goals are, much more
Yeah,
strict
yeah.
than maybe some other people.
I have the same opinion. I really like really linear feeling decks. I don't necessarily need the draft to be linear, but I like at the end, oh, I have the elephant deck. I've never drafted an elephant deck before. This rules. With cubes, a lot of time you have room to do that. Maybe WotC doesn't because they need the set to last, 2, 3 months of drafting in stores and on Arena. But the Sharpie Cube stuff, when we're kind of choosing what sort of rules we want to play with, maybe you even have a regular cube where like one card per pack is sharpied to throw off your ability to know exactly how good a card is until you play with it. You might be the third person to ever cast this card in this state. So you're part of the discovery, part of the brewing, part of the analysis. That could be the really fun part about it.
I will say though, for my Sharpie Cube, I've done most of my play testing. I do all redacted cards. I really hadn't considered the option of putting non-redacted next to redacted. Even in
hmm
my own custom projects, I have a few reprints per set, but very few, honestly.
hmm
Like at most two per color, maybe. I don't know how much people in our we can do reprints versus
hmm
wanting to design your own thing. And I think with Sharpie, I even do I'm forcing singleton on this one. So I give
hmm
myself more chances to find cool stuff and force myself to not do repeats.
hmm
I think a more tailored experience would be better for our goals of you and I, of where we want to have repeats and have consistent play patterns. Like if you want to build the storm deck, I should have multiple cards redacting the word storm onto them,
hmm
or have multiple reprints of the card that have the card storm over and over again. So that when you show up to the cube, you know, I want to draft Colossal Dreadnought with Storm.
hmm
If it's singleton and there's, let's say, 6 players, there's a chance Colossal Dreadnought doesn't even show up, let alone in your pool.
Yeah.
But also as a project that I want to work on and engage with myself. I'm in an afternoon, I'm bored, I want to look at some more Sharpie cards. Magic just introduced, also a good example was like they introduced Blight. Now I got to go through and look at all the old cards that say the word Blight.
The word blight showing up in flavor text. All right, all right.
Well, some words we know aren't going to show up in flavor text that are rules text, but then
Yeah.
as they add new words, it retroactively makes older cards interesting.
Yeah, maybe let's go through a couple of the Sharpie examples that you have, and then I think after that, then we'll get into your rules or any rules we haven't gotten to yet.
Okay, I got an easy, simple one for everybody to start with then.
Sure, yeah.
Sure Shambler from Return to Ravnica. It is a 2 and a black, 2/1 zombie with Swamp Walk and Scavenge for 2 and a black. I have redacted the Swamp Walk off because I don't like Swamp Walk. And that's a nerf. A lot of times I don't do nerfs, but sometimes I do when I make the buff so good.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
I'm redacting 2 generic mana off of its mana cost, reducing it to a 1 mana 2/1 with Scavenge for 3.
Hmm. Scavenge just means you can rip it out of your graveyard to put some counters on something else. You've actually made the card a little simpler, easier to understand. and drawn more attention to the interesting part. Here's a little creature that will definitely get you your money's worth because you have a okay attacker. Maybe you can't attack, it dies. Now I could definitely pump up some other creature. And that's fun to do. I guess the one that you got next to it right here is a little more complicated. This is Thornbow Archer. This is naturally just 1 black mana for a 1/2. And then the way it's written right now, whenever Thornbow Archer attacks, each opponent 1 blights. So blights 1. I think part of what's kind of cool about Sharpie cards, especially this one, which is like half Sharpie, like the rules text has been annihilated basically. It makes you also have the funny game of like, let me try to guess what this card used to say, because I don't know that I know off the top of my head.
I mean, Tim, do you know what Thornbow Archer used to say? Is a good question there.
My only guess is that it just like deals 1 to each opponent or something, and then has a bunch of flavor text.
I believe it's if you control another elf, you drain
If you
one.
control another elf, you drain 1. Oh, okay, yeah, I had no idea.
And that one was hard because I was trying to find the word blights in all the flavor
Yeah.
text and rules text and name text because if I could if its name is referenced as Thornbow Archer, if it had been like whenever Blightbow Archer, I could use if I could Sharpie around that, you could sometimes use the word blight in its name
Yeah.
as its rule text. It's really hard to find situations
For
where
it to be perfect.
you
Yeah.
perfectly match magic. Like there, I inverted the 1 goes before the blight. Hopefully people will understand that they blight 1.
Yeah. That's a very fun thing about Sharpie Cube to me is managing to find edits that are imperfect in terms of templating, but are still clear enough that you like. There's not a lot of other ways that you can interpret this.
So Tim, do you enjoy the imperfectness then?
Yes, I would say I do.
Interesting.
We'll get more into some of your roles, but like I think this is like if I saw this in the Sharpie Cube, this is a 2 thumbs up. This is a flawless, perfect creature.
So I don't know. It's been a fun project to discover what you want it to be, and a lot of people will find their jokes and just like anything with joking is seasoned to your taste.
Hmm.
I had another one that's if I pull it up here, but it brings up a lot of rules questions that some people think it reads really easy, and then you start asking them questions and you realize it breaks down really quickly. Mage Ring Bully. It's a 2-mana 2/2 prowess that must attack. It's its original text. I've redacted to when you cast a non-creature spell, Mage Ring Bully attacks.
Oh.
And that has a lot of subjectiveness to it, as you can read what, like, casting a non-creature spell, easy. I took that from prowess. Everyone understands what that means. What does it mean for a creature to attack as like a second part of a clause?
Yeah. You create a little pocket combat step where only it is attacking.
Or does it mean fight? Or does it mean like it can only attack players? Also, like if it's tapped, can it still legally attack? Does it like force past its tappedness? There's a lot of interesting rules there with actually a rather simple card, and for people who want to make a really subjective cube, that's kind of fun stuff you can really find. If I was playing with the same group over and over again, I think that would be kind of fun. But I think inconsistent people, particularly Magic players or sticklers, I have found I've gotten more value out of being very strict with my rules.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to go through a bunch of them and bring up the pitfalls as we go along. And you can tell why I'm right or wrong on all these.
I like it. Yeah, I think this is a good way to get a nice base down on how you like to design this, because I think some of these are not obvious, and or some of these are not like you could see some people disagreeing with some of these. All right, so maybe we'll go one at a time, and I'll just like you read it or you say it. You don't have to read it exactly as you have it in your notes, and then we'll talk about it and we'll unpack it and then we'll move on.
Okay, I want to clarify for one more thing as we were talking Sharpie Cube earlier as a concept. It is we are redacting with black markers.
Yeah, the black Sharpie.
I would encourage actually Sharpie brand has some issues and there might be better redacting, but I just had a big box of Sharpies and I've had a lot of struggles physically getting that to stick to some cards.
Okay. Do you have a rec for a better marker, or are you hoping someone else does?
If I've heard there's redacting pens that I want to try at some point, but also I would be bothered that my redacted pen ones would look good and I'd have to go replace my entire Sharpie cube. So part of me wants to stay with Sharpie and I'm just willing to put on multiple coats of Sharpie to get the Sharpie down.
Okay, yeah. You need a lot of drawing too, so you don't Sharpie the inside of a bunch of sleeves. Yeah.
Yep. So for me, paramount is legibility. The example you brought up in the early part with the storm, where they cut the
Yeah.
word storm up several times,
Yeah.
that is not something I want to do, with some very rare exceptions. When you're in an environment where you're opening up a pack of cards, asking someone to read individual letters is way too taxing. I could
Hmm.
imagine that be okay in a format where you have one per pack,
Yeah. Yeah.
but then the rest of the pack can't be taxing.
One of the nice things about Sharpie Cube in general is like even if you have to read something that's not perfect writing, like that blight example where it's whenever this attacks, one blights, each opponent one blights, like that is overall less text, even if it's a little bit alien. And that's one of the kind of cool things about Sharpie Cube is you get novel effects out of less text. But if it's too weird, maybe that's like a little too hard to reference.
Well, comparison making a custom set, I am forced to use less text
Hmm.
because I can't add text to things. Like in a custom set,
Yeah.
you could make a 600 word card.
Hmm.
But in this thing, I have to just redact it down, which
Hmm.
actually
Hmm.
can make very simple limited games. So if you're doing 100% Sharpie, I think it's geared me towards simpler play patterns.
All right. That's a good first rule here. I like this.
My next rule is the cards must be stronger in at least one dimension. I don't want my Sharpies to take a really strong magic card and just nerf it.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah.
You saw the
Yeah. This
earlier one I
is
took.
everything's a little Christmas present here. Like, you know, you're getting something a little bit better, but you don't quite know how yet.
It doesn't have to only go to the very tippy tops like those strong ones. You can make Sharpie cards that are more in the middling or high power zone, depending what bulk you're sharpieing.
Hmm.
I'm allowed to also remove upside sometimes, like you saw I removed Swamp Walk from that one card. I'm not against doing that. It's just, season to taste on the cards.
I think it's maybe especially okay to errata not that relevant abilities off of cards that are not that famous or not that beloved. And Sewer Shambler losing Swamp Walk does not make anyone that I know sad. I got to find out when this episode comes out, but I like this thing. So you sort of like net the card is better. I would say this card is 100% better. Instead of 3 minutes, 1 minute, loses Swamp Walk. And that's what you want to shoot for all your cards. Maybe they become weirder, but overall the potential's higher. That's part of what you're thinking.
Yeah, I want to make it to be a good card afterwards. Ideally, if I'm going to
Yeah.
play with it, I want it to have some purpose. It has to fill a niche in a cube.
Yeah.
So my other rules is I'm doing redactions only. I have done
Hmm.
some explorations with adding like an S for clarity
Hmm. Hmm.
because I've changed something from target to each, but I don't have the word each, so I just have
Hmm.
to have an implied each. I've also done some minor experimentations with changing a minus to a plus. So this creature
Hmm.
enters with a -1 counter instead of no, it enters with a +1
Okay.
counter.
That's entertaining.
But those are explorations I'm not like, I would not be fully committed to a lot of like saying this is like the core of Sharpie Cube. This is not what this project's about.
Hmm.
It's about redacting. It's about removing to create more and not adding to create more.
I have seen other ones where people do tiny edits or like mana cost edits and stuff like that. And that could be cool too. Maybe that's what you want to do, but yeah, seems like a solid rule overall.
One of the things I do is I have a ton of bulk. I flick through a lot of bulk magic cards and I'll look through cards and look for what changes I want to make for these cards. And then store a bunch of them because it takes a long time sharpening and letting them dry, sharpening to make sure they're dry.
Hmm.
And I only have X number of slots in my cube, so I have a bunch, pre-sharpied, but also have a bunch unsharpied, ready to go. That if I change my mind and I
Ah,
want to add this new card, or sometimes I'll wait till I get 2 or 3 copies, so that if I redact one thing, I can later change it and make a different version, redacting other things.
yeah, have the options ready. That makes sense.
And I'll look at some of my favorites and decide these are old cards I get to now re-experience and decide if I can sharpie them to the right power level, I get to enjoy them
Yeah.
all over again.
And that's part of this Sharpie Cube temptation, maybe, of like, yeah, let's just take Herbert's Protector from 6 mana down to 2. I am now creating like a kind of outside the norm environment if I can have a 1/1 and a 4/4 flyer for 2 mana. Maybe I want to juice everything that hard, so it's kind of good. Or now this is a rare, or whereas other cubes are more like, it's a little more sane. It's a little, normal card evaluations. This lightning bolt is as good as lightning bolt normally is. It's not like some weirdo that is now awful.
Yeah, and I think getting that level right, that's why I have multiple projects. So even there, like a lot of people have a second cube so that there's stuff that doesn't make sense in the first cube and go in the second cube,
Hmm.
or it goes well in a custom project. Like if you're doing some sort of format where you radically change some of the rules, then that might make more sense to have those extra options. Like I know a lot of my custom projects, I changed the rules for fixing that I would have for my other projects. So
Yeah,
Sharpie
yeah.
allowed me that I tried for a while to keep everything like at the level of powerful fixing in cubes and like nothing better than a strictly dual or something. And there just wasn't enough options to have interesting lands. So I broke that rule and that experimentation has turned out pretty well.
Oh, okay.
Giving players access to really good mana while still keeping the limited fundamentals has been okay. Um, some people could design a Sharpie Cube to be more like rituals and storm play patterns. But I'm more
Yeah.
encouraging general, like, limited play patterns where there will be a storm card or two, but you're likely to have a storm count of like 3 or 4, never like a storm count of 10.
Hmm.
So as you like adapt, season your own projects to what you want it to be is important, and Sharpie gives you a lot of knobs over just forced to use WotC's cardboard, but
Hmm.
not as many knobs as custom magic.
Yeah, yeah.
And that has been good for me to give me the limits I want to, particularly if
Yeah.
I'm using I'll look through my bulk and I'll like look through all of the stuff and I'll pick out stuff. And then a couple months later, something changed. So I'm flicking through it again and I'll find things I didn't see the first time. Maybe it's because new stuff's been added. Maybe my standards are changing. Maybe just my creative juices are feeling different when I'm flicking through this card differently. And I go, oh, maybe this is a good idea. And that's been a fun process of getting to enjoy magic, enjoy creating magic, which I hope everyone here enjoys doing that. Just but with a weird pen versus like a computer digital file that prints whatever you want.
Most custom Magic people that I know also like cubes, also like Commander, also like, like more restricted things, regular limited. And it's because regular, like actual blank canvas custom Magic is so intense and so ambitious and so open that it's like hard to really keep your momentum going or hard to expect to actually do 300 of these. Whereas, a little bit of limitation, it's not that Sharpieing is easy. It's definitely tricky in its own way, but it gives you that sort of like, it narrows it down a lot. I used to do a bunch of block cubes, and that's like, hey, out of these 1,000 cards, which 150, 200 cards do I want to have in a cube? That's like a doable thing. You could just look at all 1,000 cards and start to make a list and start to narrow it down. Whereas if I wanted to make a new Innistrad set myself, that would be really hard.
Yeah, and I think it's good to give yourself those limitations if you're struggling. If your current process isn't giving you the results you want, so you need to change your process somewhat.
Hmm.
So, like this kind of cube of forcing myself to approach the problem this way has led to like a different cube I wouldn't have had because I'm forced to use it. And it's kind of repetitive and circular in its own way. But I've even taken some of the cards I've made for Sharpie and used them in projects other places.
Hmm.
Like, oh, this was such a good play pattern of a 1 mana 2/1 with Scavenge as the example we're going to use again here. That's a good play pattern to have as a card that it attacks well, then you want it to die, and then you exile it from the graveyard for value later. That's a good play pattern for like Magic fundamentals. And I wouldn't necessarily like stumbled into that unless I've been forcing myself to make cards out of these. I got another one here that's a card I would never have just like I would never put in a cube, but since it's
Hmm.
Sharpie, I thought about this and now I feel clever putting it in here,
Haha.
and now it's a card I wouldn't. So Awakened Awareness is from Neon Dynasty Kamigawa,
Hmm.
X blue blue, enchantment aura, enchanted creature or artifact. When Awakened Awareness enters the battlefield, put X plus multiple counters on enchanted permanent.
Hmm.
As long as enchanted permanent is a creature, it has base power toughness 1/1. I have redacted most of a word to change it to as long as a permanent is a creature, it has base power toughness 1/1. So this attaches to one creature, but affects all creatures in play.
Like not quite humility, but it does like turn everything into one ones.
Except the creature you have enchanted with Awakened Awareness will have +1/+1 counters put
Yeah.
on it.
Okay. Wow. This is a card that I never saw anyone ever cast. So it's fun to imagine a world where someone would cast this card. Because yeah, you spend, I don't know, 6 mana, You put 4 counters on one of your creatures, and now all creatures are 1/1s except your guy's a 5/5. All right.
Or even just putting one counter on it. Now it's the 2/2 among a bunch of 1/1s.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. This is my way to beat the green deck. Yeah.
If you're the +1 counter deck,
Yeah, that's true.
because this doesn't affect +1 counters, it's
Mhm.
bringing that play pattern you'll sometimes see with like the white-black bear commander that turns everything into 2/2s. And I've found a way to do it using bulk, which is kind of fun, that I can redact something, particularly how little redaction this one took to get there.
All right, let's get a couple more of these rules. What do you got next?
The big one's about colors. I know we mentioned earlier is I don't want to remove all of the colors from a card. I have some exceptions to this
Oh.
where we'll put them in the show notes so people can see these. But I've got a lot of things I've been trying to figure out because colorless is one of the hardest things to redact without removing everything. So I'm grouping a couple of my rules here together. If you knock out all of the mana cost, that is a mana cost like Ancestral Visions. It's not 0.
It can't be cast naturally.
So a generic card, I can't affect its top right mana cost unless it's like an Eldrazi card that has a colorless symbol up there and a generic cost.
Oh, sure, yeah.
So I'm really struggling to fill up my generic sections in these cubes because they lack that knob, and a lot of the other knobs hidden on like the text box might be some colored symbols, and if they don't have those either, I can't knock them out. And maybe I can knock off the entire generic cost on a card like Jadam's Tome or something, or remove the tap symbol from Jadam's Tome, the old card that says tap way too much mana, draw a card. The options I've used exceptions is I think devoid cards, if I knock out their color mana symbol, the frame looks colorless enough. So my example here is Oblivion Strike, cost 3 and a black, sorcery, devoid, exile target creature. I just removed the black mana symbol, so it's a 3 mana, exile target creature, sorcery.
Oh.
Good generic removal. My next option, and most recently I heard about sun bleaching magic cards. And so I'm currently
Yeah, so this is like putting a card. Sometimes people even like painter's tape, like the borders or something, but put a card out and leave it out in the sun long enough and then it gets faded. Like if you've ever seen a poster in like a store window get faded, do that to a magic card and now you've got like a colorless looking card. All right, this is a good solution.
So I've got a render I put up here that is hopefully I can bleach out to get this effect. I think given that we live on Terra, we have a yellow sun or whatever, and it's going to rip out the red ink first. I'm starting mostly with red cards to see if I can rip their red ink out so they become more devoid looking. And then I'll Sharpie on top of that afterwards.
Yeah, okay. That is a funny solution. So it looks less red, it looks less blue. And now when you remove the blue or red cost, now it doesn't look too it reminds you that it's colorless.
Yeah, my hope is people understand that, because if you just saw a card that had a green border and I knock out the mana cost, it's going to read as a green card and it's going to end up in decks.
Yeah, yeah.
My next solution is a bit more crude, and I've only done one card like this, and it's because I'm too impatient to see if sun bleaching is going to work. I just took a card, and you can see it in the show notes, Tim, and we'll post it afterwards. This is with a literal knife. I just sat there and cut the upmost layer off of the border of the card, and then redacted the card's mana cost to be colorless.
Oh.
So there's just stark white paper.
Oh. Oh, you like carved the... This is like doing like lino cuts, but for magic cards. You're like scraping a tenth of a millimeter off of scraping the border off. That's funny.
Yeah, and I might go back and add maybe some silver on top of that to see if I can get the right amount. I want to have more options, more knobs, more choices. So just anything get me more choices in a way that I think is clever. That's something I'm exploring. So if you think of a clever way of how to make more generic cards look good, that's great.
Yeah.
Similarly, going back to some more of these rules, if you find a card that says the word evoke in its flavor text, what does that mean to the card? So if I keep everything unredacted except for I've redacted its flavor text to just say the word evoke, what does that mean?
I guess if I had to make a call, I would say its evoke cost is it's either 0 or the card's cost. But the card's cost would be bad, so I don't know.
Yeah, I have the rule, because I have a few cards I found that had the word madness or mayhem in them. So I just use their mana cost for their costs. And somebody else could come up with a different discussion for that. And that's a rule I think that is good blanket across multiple things.
Hmm.
It doesn't mean that the word evoke isn't ever going to be useful. I mean, yeah, you could find a card that has a death trigger that's hard to die, and you
But
want
like
it to be able to
rules,
play it for
yeah.
its death cost.
Yeah.
That could come up, and that's going to be narrow. But if you find it, you're going to feel like really clever that you found the word, you got the rule to work, and it's great. I also, if there's a number, like if I sometimes do, if the card needs a number, it's assumed to be one. So if I couldn't, that card we used with the blight
Oh yeah,
example,
you just say
I could
that.
just say the card blights, and blights
Hmm.
implies one, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Storm is the one a lot of people use because Magic uses the word storm. It's a very evocative word, and it also just happens to be a Magic word.
Yeah, it's on a lot of flavor text. Yeah.
Um, I have
Oh,
one good
okay.
example of a weird one where I found the wording to work well. Is old cards used to say when this creature enters the battlefield, comma scry 2. Newer text won't say enter the battlefield, and we actually need that word battle because if you redact everything except for the word battle, you can remove field and you go to scry, remove the S, you get battle cry.
Oh,
So you can do battle cry 2 or battle cry nothing because battle cry doesn't need a number, but the number people would imply they can see battle cry 2 and they imply it means 2 instances of battle cry or something.
hmm.
And so sometimes the printing matters. So you have to go find an older printing that has the right flavor text or the right rules text for you to redact things. So you do actually need the real copy. I've searched long and hard for certain copies of cards, and every time I see the other printing, I get excited and then have to throw it back because it's not what I'm looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Even if I could just Sharpie the word onto the card and be just fine. It's not that's not Sharpie Cube. That's a different kind of Sharpie meaning.
Yeah, I could almost imagine if you took a bunch of like vanilla cards in your Sharpie Cube and just like wrote single keywords on them. That like there your handwriting wouldn't be so large that it like because that's part of the issue with trying to draw like tiny letter S's. Like you can't make it small enough; it always looks bad.
You can that's closer to Sticker Cube is what I do.
Okay, yeah, that is more
A different
stickery.
project where I get to do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I've run into this problem, so I do try to err away from it. Is if I have one instance of a keyword, I don't want to use it. My best
Yeah.
example is I had a card that had provoke.
Oh,
I was really happy
okay.
with the
Yeah.
card. It played just fine.
I know what that does, but most people don't.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't know what provoke was, and I can give them a card at the beginning of the round that says, "Here's what all the keywords mean."
Yeah.
And the longer that list, the more confusing it is.
Yeah. That
So
was like the Modern Masters rule. In Modern Masters, they needed like 3 of a mechanic to put it in the set.
yeah, and I've only got two that I'm happy with provoke, so provoke has been cut. But I'm always sitting there thinking about him because I got
Yeah.
two cards with provoke, and I loved provoke as a kid.
Is there a card in the top 1,000 most famous Magic cards that has this keyword? If not, maybe think twice. Yeah.
Like Blight, I think is a good one for right now, but maybe in 3 years, Blight won't be reused, and I will have to
Great
cut the
point.
Blight card because it's confusing.
Great point. Yeah. It works for now. Yeah.
Storm has the high enough density, so Storm is the standout. Some ones are evergreen, like Fencing Ace has the word prowess in its flavor text.
Oh, okay.
So that's a really fun one you can use. It's like, ooh, you have a 2 mana 1/1 double strike prowess.
Hmm.
Or you can make it a 1/1 if you're going really strong. Um, as you're breaking color pie, because you're doing custom things, and Sharpie is like
Yeah.
that, where you
Yeah.
can break color pie. You can redact things like a fight spell to
Hmm.
become something that is no longer green and is closer to red's territory.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
One of my friends joked that I should take the card that got misprinted in Edge of Eternities and just sleeve it with no Sharpie, but it plays like it is printed,
Yeah. Yeah,
which
the
was a
fight
fight
spell
spell.
that like accidentally let you have two of opponent's creatures fight. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so I don't know what's your feedback on that kind of like color pie breaking in Sharpie.
Hmm. I would say this is an interesting question. And I think posed as a question on its own, I think about it differently, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Like I am usually pretty against color pie breaks, even in custom magic, even when you're doing stuff for fun. But somehow the Sharpie cubeness makes it as clear as possible that this is not meant to be a real card. Um, and so the breakiness is less offensive to me, maybe. Like I would be more comfortable with a Sharpie cube that actually accidentally turned a red card to a blue card because of some rule change than I would like actually just color shifting it in a set.
So I found a lot of people are like you in that sense where they
Hmm.
think they're okay with the color shifting. I'm not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fair
And
enough.
one of my best successes is I found boiling seas.
Okay.
Let me redact the word IS from destroy all islands to just destroy all lands. And I turned Armageddon red. And you could see that as a color pipe, right? But I'm saying red,
Eh,
Armageddon should have been red, so I'm
Armageddon
okay
could
with
be
that.
red. Yeah.
And that's the thing. So people have to figure out what they want and what they are okay
Yeah.
with giving to their players. And I found
Yeah.
more people have been tolerant of power levels with Sharpie and more
Mm.
tolerance with like sillier things. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I guess circling back on the really strong fixing angle, I've got a cycle of cards that I've got many of these because WotC's given
Mm.
me many of them. I think they play really well, but I recognize they are too strong for WotC Magic. You're familiar with the cards that have plain cycling for 2 generic or swamp cycling for 2 generic. They've been putting in
Yeah.
a lot of custom
Mm-hmm.
sets. So sorry,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of
Mm-hmm.
draft commons and WotC sets. I have redacted the 2 off of that cost, and I've kept the rest of the card
Mm.
the same. So
Okay.
they are really bad cards comparison to everything else in the cube because they're 6 mana, you know,
Yeah.
6/6s with
Commons. Yeah.
keyword or something. And comparison, my race car zooming 1 mana 3/3s and stuff, they feel terrible. But since they're basically just a planes that you can go find and play it as a plane cycler, go find
Yeah.
just many planes, put it in play, or late game you have these big chunk creatures, has led to surprisingly good play patterns.
Yeah. They're like split card, or DFC card of like untapped planes on the front, bad creature on the back.
Yeah, the
That's
fun thing
fun.
is because they're all huge, it actually fills up my curve on like my if you fill it, look at your curve on MSC, you can see it. And I know my entire like huge section of those high drops is mostly those, you know, kind of common
Hmm.
cards, but they do lead to play patterns where they outscale a lot of my redacted cards into the late game.
Hmm.
Like a 6 mana 4/5 flying from Duskmourn, it will just punch into those little 3 drops I've redacted to 1 mana really well. Giving some people control decks some odd options as they go into the late game. If they drafted lots of those, they can start actually playing those. Versus decks that play really low mana curves and cannibalize their mana base, because I give you the option to cannibalize your mana base, because I can redact the lands that come and play tapped and they sack to give you some
Oh.
benefit. I can reduce the
Oh, okay.
tapness of them, so you're playing more of those. It gives you 2 angles to have a mana base of, do you want to cannibalize as you go in the late game, or do you want to start curving into these big fatties or reanimate these big fatties into the late game?
Hmm. I know I'm signing up for something kind of weird, and I guess with a Sharpie Cube, I'm expecting the format to be wonky and there to be power level weirdness and deck composition changes. Whatever designer is working on this kind of thing, they're going to find like a whole vein of something cool that they're going to do 20 of in that cube. And you put all those in your deck, you're going to have a deck that you've never had before, which is kind of what we want, like that's, it's a good time. So now that we're done kind of like loading up all this info, all these opinions on how you could conduct a Sharpie Cube, design it, improve it, I always like to apply some of that right away. I came into this episode not really knowing what to think about when designing Sharpie cards or when redacting cards, and now I feel like I got opinions.
Okay, Tim. The first one I wanted to start with was Think Twice, a card most of us probably familiar with. For
Okay.
1 and a U,
Mm-hmm.
instant, draw a card.
Mm.
Flashback for 2 and a U. Its flavor text is either I know just the spell I need, or I'm about to.
Mm. So there are like power level ones we could do, right? You could take a mana off of the casting cost, take 2 mana off of the flashback cost. Both of those would make this a very appealing card that you'd want to play. I guess if we want to go a little crazier, we got to read the rules text and think if we can do anything with that. Either I know just the spell I need, or I'm about to. In the alchemy world, I could imagine we erase card and we erase flashback and we erase most of the flavor text so it just says draw a spell. And now we have like a alchemy, like rip a spell out of your deck, a non-land, draw a non-land, basically. We could try repurposing some of Flashback's reminder text. You may cast this card from your graveyard for its flashback cost, then exile it. We could be goofballs here and like try to make a new keyword. I'm going to call it Ashback. You may cast this card from your graveyard for its Ashback cost and then strike out, then exile it. So I'm allowed to just keep Ashbacking as much as I want to draw additional cards.
You've mentioned all the options I've thought about before
Mm-hmm.
of this card, like making it permanently flashbackable,
Mm-hmm.
lowering either the front cost or the back cost. Both
Mm-hmm.
create interesting spaces.
Yeah. Getting the flashback cost down to 1 turns this into, like, Quick Study, which has been a pretty solid card.
Yeah.
Either of those edits would push this out of common, in a cool way.
You can also get rid of the flashback entirely and just change it to you may cast this card from your graveyard. You don't need to make a new keyword for it.
Yeah.
You've mentioned the more silly ones or like esoteric ones of drawing a spell, or you could even change it to like know just the spell, where like it's somehow that's implying a tutor of some sort. So you just know the spell you need to get.
Or
Um,
draw a spell I need. So
yeah.
that we're, like, wishboarding almost.
The other thing, of course, I don't think you were thinking of was you could open
Yeah.
up Skyfall and look for other printings of Think Twice to see if there's a different
Mm.
flavor text you liked.
I was obeying the mandate of the piece of cardboard in front of me, even this was digital.
No, that's the right thing, and I think that's the process that we do with Sharpie. And I
Yeah.
think all of these things are fun knobs to settle on. How you want to shake it out by the end is fine. Um, it's a little sad because I think if it said like exile twice in the name and something, like if you use the word think twice somewhere in its text box, you could use the word twice as an action.
Hmm.
But all the older printings do even say this card instead of saying like it doesn't say its name. But if a card did say its name and its name was think twice, you could redact part of its name and just be like draw a card twice. So those are the kind of knobs I want you thinking about,
Yeah.
and this has been like the easy example of what we're going to try to do with
Yeah,
probably with
yeah.
more weirder cards and more knobs than Think Twice, which has
Mhm,
a lot,
mhm.
but not that many in comparison. Some cards with lots of text.
Yeah. Next up, you got Harbinger of Spring, which is 4 and a green, 5 mana for a 2/1. We already have some ideas. 5 mana, 2/1. It has protection from non-spirit creatures, which is a good ability. And then it also has a mechanic from its block, Soul Shift 4. When this spell is put into a graveyard from play, you may return target spirit card with converted mana cost 4 or less from your graveyard to your hand. This is a 5 mana thing that brings back a 4 mana thing. It used to be back in the day, Soul Shift, you would want like a whole slew of creatures in your graveyard, so you could even like get a chain going. Like we've been talking about, the first couple things we can look at, just wiping off that 4 into just 1 mana for a 2/1, then do something else with it. Maybe remove one of the abilities, like you talked about with or Sewer Shambler. As protection from non-spirit creatures, this is kind of interesting because this is already almost at its full potential. Because if you just say protection from creatures, okay, well now all you've really gained is the spirits, and then Soul Shift probably has a bunch of silly stuff you could do with it.
So I bring up Harbinger of Spring as a good example because 4 mana sounds crazy to knock off of a card. Because I mentioned I did that before and it was busted.
Mm-hmm.
As you're right, I think if you knocked 4 mana off this card, it's not busted, with
Yeah,
one weird exception, which is since the cards assume that they have higher mana than their soul shift value, they can't grab themselves.
yeah.
So it could grab itself when it dies.
Hmm.
But if we ignore that edge case for a second, because Gravedigger Lock isn't OP in Sharpie Cube to some extent. You're going to be doing
Yeah.
stronger things than Gravedigger Lock in them. Is you can get rid of protection from, you can say non-creatures.
Okay. Okay.
You can say protection from spirits as a way to nerf it for losing protection from non-spirits, which is way stronger, but it still gets
Yeah.
to keep a little bit of its fun texture of, haha, I've got protection from spirits. And maybe there's
Yeah.
like 3
Yeah.
spirits in the cube because we've nerfed it to make it only block spirits, but we've buffed it somewhere else. And you're right, Soul Shift can be adjusted in like 3 different ways to return non-spirits from the graveyard. It can return anything from the graveyard, unlocking its mana value.
Yeah.
A lot of fun knobs there.
Mm-hmm.
I have a couple of copies, and I can't, because there's weirdly too many knobs in this card, I've yet to redact one.
Oh, okay.
It's also from Kamigawa, so it's a little hard to get bulk from Kamigawa.
I guess we're entering that era now. All right.
So you pulled up Thallid Shell Dweller for
Yeah.
1 and a G, 05 creature fungus. Defender. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a spore counter on this creature, remove 3 spore counters from this creature, create a 1/1 Saproling token.
This is one I bumped into when I was randoming, and I felt like there's got to be something. It's got
So
to be something fun to do with this.
I haven't done it with him because I don't have enough spare copies of this
Sure.
card, but I have redacted other Thallids to just say
Okay.
at the beginning of your upkeep, make a Saproling.
Yeah, you can sort of say like at the beginning of your upkeep, erase, 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 erase. Put a 1/1 green sapling creature token onto the battlefield.
You can also say at the beginning of your upkeep, put a counter on it, remove counter from it, make a sapling. So you still keep the fact you can bank the tokens. You just remove the 3 to just 1.
Yeah, remove spore counters from yeah.
Remove spore counter from this creature.
Yeah.
I think reads as 1 counter for most people.
Yeah.
Some of the other thalids have additional text to sacrifice saplings. So one of them I did was at the beginning of your upkeep, got rid of all of the other text, and then said this one had sacrifice a sapling, target creature -1/-1. So it could then just upkeep give something -1/-1 every turn. You brought up this is an 0/5 defender, so we could drop this to 1 mana and just be like, hey, you want to play like the Thalid play pattern, but have a giant, wall, and to bring it up to modern standards, it's got 5 toughness and only cost 1. That's good. I enjoy playing Thalids. I'd be happy to play it. We could get rid of defender, so it's an 0/5 attacker, which for certain of my Sharpie projects have been really interesting because I bring things down really small micro games.
Yeah.
And 0/5 attacking doesn't sound good until you're at very low life total, so any combat trick's good. So anything that can attack at all and hold a combat trick is really good.
I would also assume that like a Thality lifestyle would have access to pumping your team or growing your team. I remember there was like a niche heroic card that was like a 1 mana 0/4 that when you targeted it got a +1/+1 counter. And that was actually a pretty playable card. Just being 1 mana with 4 stats.
It still sees proper play. Learning Trailblazer.
Laguna Band Trailblazer, yeah. Oh, but that's cool that it's still famous. It was in Journey to Nyx, so no one got to play it. But removing text makes it clear sometimes that this should be a synergy thing. Like I was thinking, like you got your 1 mana 0/5 that just generates spore counters but has no outlet for them. You could remove the create tokens thing from it, and then now you just like, how do I just start accumulating spores early, and then I have some other card that's able to eat spores or eat counters or proliferate or whatever else. And then now I can make use of it in a way that I couldn't before.
So Tim, we've got an example of something I might redact the name on to call him like maybe just Dweller or something.
Okay.
And like Thala Dweller or something, because you could change it to at the beginning of your upkeep, put a redact all the way to the word shell, and then we're going to get rid of and we're going to do a shell counter onto Thala Dweller, and then get rid of the sapling part. So he has shell counters now.
Hell yeah.
So you could be like, that's maybe like a shield counter or something different.
Yeah.
So that's like a space that's more on the subjective side that's interesting, because shell counter sounds defensive and interesting. But you'd have to redact the name somewhat, where you might want to start redacting parts of the name out so that you don't have the confusion of it put a shell counter on Shell Dweller is sometimes hard to read.
I had one last one in here that is a little tough, but I wanted to think through a couple of the possibilities here. Honden of Seeing Winds. If you know the shrines, you might know this one. This is 4 and a blue. Legendary enchantment shrine. At the beginning of your upkeep, draw a card for each shrine you control. One of the things I was trying to think of is like, if you redact the type line off of something, what is the assumption of what it is?
So if you remove legendary, we all understand it's just not a legendary. If you remove shiny, it's just enchantment without shrine. Yeah. If you remove enchantment, you go into that zone of what does it mean to be an untyped permanent?
Yeah. Or untyped card even.
Well, it still would be a permanent. Because there are ways to create untyped permanents in Magic. They're one of those you have to do, like turn it into an artifact and then remove all its other types, then remove its artifactness. And you can make it colorless by moonlacing it, so it's a colorless, typeless permanent. So I guess, but if without the initial starting with the permanent type, what is it?
Yeah.
That is weird.
I started to have an idea for like a blanket rule where if it didn't have any sort of types, it was just a sorcery. It does a thing and then goes away.
Oh.
And then my idea here was knock this down to 1 mana, knock out the first line, draw a card for each shrine you control. So a card that's not a shrine itself. And it started to make sense to me that like so many permanents have things that could be spell text. You could just say by default, if you have no type, then you're a sorcery. You could get a lot of cards out of that Sharpie-wise.
You could also make a new card type. In this case, like, a chant, CHANT. and a chant is a sorcery.
Okay.
Kind of like how summons are now
Yeah.
creatures. You're like, it's an old way we used to call sorceries. They're chants.
Hmm. Yeah, like summon. Yeah. Okay. I like that.
And you could even do like here where you're saying it, draw a card for each shrine you control.
Hmm.
There's also the word learn is in the reminder text, the flavor
Yeah.
text. So you could say like for each shrine you control, learn.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We could even say maybe draw a card for each. So it's sorrow, winds, found, sin, hearts. Draw a card for each you control, wisdom. We're back at the subjective angle of what does it mean to have a
Sure.
wisdom? Maybe that's a card in your hand as wisdom, or maybe a card in your graveyard is considered a wisdom. maybe a sorrow. We got sorrow in the play. That's a heart could mean a creature because creatures have hearts. So draw a card for each you control heart for each creature you control. Because one of the issues of doing your idea of saying draw a card for each shrine, you'd have to put it in an environment where there are shrines, and there aren't enough probably redactions to make a full like put shrines into a Sharpie cube. But if you're just adding this as a spice of life to another cube, to another like custom set or a normal cube that has shrines in it, this would be a fun way to add additional cards that care about shrines.
But with both these cards, I was sort of thinking like, here's how you can like create a new environment out of cards that people are familiar with, and now you're going to pull the rug out from under them. It's not familiar at all anymore.
See, I'm funny. I'm typically drawn to cards people have no association with.
Yeah, that's true. Like when I've done like reworking cards and reworking or adding rework cards into cubes, I usually aim for cards that people don't know because then they
So
won't accidentally play them without reading the card.
a lot of times in my custom projects, I will use WotC assets and I'll sort the like filter of like, I want red cards and I'll sort by EDH Rick and just go to the very bottom and start looking up from there so people won't recognize the assets I'm using.
Hmm.
Because it'd be really
Yeah.
terrible if someone looks at a card and goes, "Oh,
I
I
know what this
thought this
is.
was Tarmogoyf," but you use
Yeah.
Tarmogoyf's name and art, and this card says draw a card for every artifact in your graveyard. That's not what Tarmogoyf does.
Hmm.
It's been a fun journey doing Sharpie stuff, doing like so many little redactions, fixes, and adjustments. But I would encourage everyone to at least flick through some of their bulk or even their custom projects and see what they could do. That's this kind of silly angles of just making things better and playable and pushing their limits, or can you find truly these great jokes that are out there?
Alrighty. I know way more about Sharpieing than I did before this episode started. So, yeah, when would I deploy this technology? I guess if I wanted to have a project that I did with some friends who weren't that into custom magic yet, but wanted something that was like kind of interactive. Hey, let's do this over the course of a weekend. We got a whole box of these cards. Let's try to find some cards that we can put together, maybe play a couple games with them, play some sealed. That'd be a good place to deploy this. If you just want to sink an infinite amount of time, it's also good for that.
If you want to make budget proxies, this is a good way to make budget proxies of cards you want because you
Sure.
can redact your way to a real magic card, and that might be easier than proxying and sleeving for you.
There you go.
I know I was a bit dismissive of that earlier in the episode, but I don't want to like poo poo on anybody's ideas they want to do. This is a creative medium, and I enjoy here in Beacon that we get to engage with all sorts of weird tech. And Sharpie is kind of in that weird
Yeah.
zone of you kind of engage with WotC's cards a bit, but you could do it in a way that feels like you're creative.
It's like less open ended than making a whole custom card, but still very open ended and decently challenging, which is I don't know, just like another great skill builder, I guess. So yeah, that's about it for our main topic then. Before we get out of here, it's time to just talk about our monthly design challenge. This is back to being open ended, right? But we've got some limits on this too. The June design challenge is Haughty Juno. Design a hate bear for curtailing a particular strategy. A hate bear being something that, like, usually a 2 mana 2/2, that's the bear part, that slows down some kind of strategy. Like, whenever your opponent draws the second card each turn, deal damage to them, or, non creature spells cost more, or artifacts enter the battlefield tapped. Something that slows down a popular strategy. What do you think the iconic hate bears are? What jumps out at you as some real classics?
I was really bothered that another podcast that I really like listen to had an episode about hate, like hate cards
Hmm.
this month, their definition was very rigid. They did not
Okay.
consider Thalia a hate card because it was just a taxing card and not something that like hated out a strategy in its entirety.
Wasn't severe enough to be a hate card to them. Okay.
Yeah, and they mentioned that their definitions of things was silly in their own way, and they had a good
Hmm.
conversation. But I
Hmm.
think Thalia is to me the original hate bearer,
Okay.
and like that's the one I think of when I think of hate bears of just hating on your opponent trying to play interactive controlling cards or storm.
Hmm. Hmm.
I do wonder on the weird esoteric level of what is hate bears. If you use a hate bear proactively, does it stop becoming a hate bear? Best example I can think of is Lay an Arbiter with a Ghost Quarter effect turns your Ghost Quarters into strip mines.
Oh, so like setting up a rule and then building synergy off that. Hey, I'm going to destroy your land, and guess what? You don't get to do anything about it. Rather than destroy your land and you get a land back.
Yeah, Teferi has
Hmm.
similar combos of like I put a Teferi down and that makes so you can't cast spells at certain times, and then I put down like a Knowledge Pool or something. It becomes more
Hmm.
like a combo than a hate bear, but the original piece is a hate bear, so
Yeah, those are some of the ingredients. With a hate bear, you're sort of like, can you get synergy with it? With Thalia, there's not really any synergy to be had. It just makes non creatures. Like you can dodge having too many non creatures, but it's going to make non creatures more expensive. Whereas like some hate bears, the rules that they set up, you can't search your library. You can't do this or that. Like there, you can start to build synergy into it. I think another piece with a hate bear that's kind of interesting is like how applicable it is. Like how embarrassing is it if your opponent isn't playing that? Where do you want to target a hate bear to be as fun as possible? Should it be sideboard only? Should it be something you're happy enough to main deck?
excited to do this month's challenge.
Have you already submitted, or are you still working on your card?
Still working on it. I have to figure out my own thoughts of these kind of questions we just asked and decide something that matches my criteria.
Yeah. You only got a little bit of time left. Looks like you got, well, as of recording, about 5 days, but as of the episode posting, just 2 more days. So get those up. We'd love to read them. We'd love to see them. And yeah, that'll be due June 26th. So we can record that episode and have it up. Well, speaking of episodes, that's about the end of this one. Hop on the Discord. That's where all the community's going. Popcorn is still going super strong. People are way into it. Read multiple new cool cards every day. A lot of collaboration, a lot of jokes, a lot of fun. So yeah, that's the main thing to hop into on the Discord right now. But we'd love to just have you there in general. Thanks for hopping on, Otter. Thanks for suggesting this episode. Thanks for being prepared. Thanks for bringing all your knowledge.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been fun to do the Sharpie journey and getting a little bit of feedback from other designers instead of just players.
Yeah, yeah. Anything you want to recommend to people?
Just be more popcorn, like you just said. I've been really loving that as another
All
like
right, all
low
right.
stakes, easy thing to try messing around with. And if you wanted to make a Sharpie card, spin a popcorn, that'd be fine too. Just have fun. Popcorn's been a blast.
Everyone owes it to Otter for prepping this episode to at least open the popcorn channel and read a card or two. Just introduce yourself to the popcorn chaos. But yeah, if you need to find either of us, Discord is the place to do that. And then most of all, everyone, thank you for listening.